And welcome back to the episode of Geek Centurions. We're back with another movie review, and we are touching on Dune.
Yeah, and boy, is this a
This is a dense ass movie.
yeah,
By the
like
way, we didn't have time to go watch this in IMAX, so we had to settle for HBO Max. If you have the time, go watch this shit on IMAX.
yeah, like here's my thing. I decided to watch it on my computer through a different little monitor, and there were definitely moments where I think the screen I was using was a bit dark because I got some dark moments. But you decided to put it on the TV outside. That's a bit more higher resolution, and no, that looked fine.
Yeah, the TV in our living room.
Yeah. So but point being, yeah, no, I think this is that's a lot big. Is a big discussion with this film, and yeah, it definitely seems like one of those like, oh yeah, it's like one of those IMAX sort of experiences, right? Dune, yeah, go see it in IMAX. But more importantly, this is based off a book, a series of books, if I recall correctly.
No, it's like I think it's six, and the writer whose name I can't remember at the moment had a seventh one planned. So,
Yeah.
but untimely death, as they say,
Mm-hmm.
or timely, one of the two.
Yeah, no, because I remember hearing about Dune, because there was a movie that was made back in the '80s, which was not received well. It was I believe, a financial and critical bomb.
I think there was a lot of because you're done talking about the David Lynch movie,
Yeah.
and I think he's went on record saying that's one of his worst movies, and there's a lot of studio meddling, and
Mm-hmm.
he had to. I think he changed a lot in the film for it to make sense, and it still didn't make any sense.
Yeah. That kind of sucks for like David Lynch because he's a solid director. So
I think also a thing with the Dune movie is one you're adapting. It's the Lord of the Rings of sci-fi films of sci-fi genre. Because with Lord of the Rings, it was considered to be the one of the most unfilmable things to ever be made, because that was a thing that was made for the book. Like you had to include like all this Elvish writing, the Elvish language, the maps, the all the things that made Middle Earth, like that kind of stuff. And with Dune, I've never read the book, so I can't really tell you that much. But I've heard that there's a lot of stuff that it's very similar to the things that were in like Lord of the Rings, like an appendix, glossary, and all that kind of stuff that make you like understand. Because like even in this movie, they talk about stuff that I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah, no, I will say this the first third of this movie is a lot of like world building stuff.
And it's like really like, you know, if you this is a very deep sci-fi movie. So if you have never or you think you know sci-fi, then this will really challenge you.
Yeah, we're not talking about like Star Wars sci-fi that's like, oh, like a little.
There's a bit of like mysticism, and not saying that Dune doesn't have that mysticism, but it's like, there's a lot of fantasy elements in like in Star Wars. It's like heck, they even call at some point Jedi's those wizards.
Yeah,
and it's. I mean, yeah, the Force has been explained, but it looks like magic most of the time. Here, which by the way, Dune inspired Star Wars.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah, and like I'll say this right now, watching it, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I can kind of see some of those influences.
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
yeah, and I mean the biggest one is the freaking desert planet.
Yeah, just obviously that was gave rise to episode 4 and stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's very deep with a lot of stuff going on and like things that you're like, wait, what? That's a thing? Like, yeah, that's a thing. Especially because like they don't explain things. Like I don't mean like you feel like this is a world that it's inhabitable. It's one of those things where I feel like most sci-fi stories tend to do is where like they talk in a way that the world is already lived in.
Yeah, I was gonna say like they don't like do like a ton of like sit you down and like explain, oh, this and that. It's more like you're pretty much in the middle of this sort of story in this world that's like seems to be established, and you're sort of having to like.
It's like when you're like it's not like when you're reading fantasy novels or whatever, and you're like, okay, there's the orcs, there's the goblins, there's the elves, there's like this. No, like it's not. You're gonna get stuff that you're not used to because Dune from it was like kind of like Lord of the Rings again. They were the trendsetters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They were the ones that like established that thing that made sci-fi and or fantasy.
Yeah, and like they're like obviously I think I think sort of the better thing is like sometimes some I think modern sci-fi movies will tend to like drone on about like trying to explain like certain aspects or whatever. Here in Dune, I think a perfect example is like they have like kind of like a weird shield thing, but instead of just explaining, oh, this does this and this and that for a couple minutes, they just kind of just show.
Yeah, because it's a shield.
Yeah, it's just a shield that like sort of like vibrates and like pretty much protects you for a little bit.
Which is better than the one I saw from the David Lynch movie, where it's like blocks, block, block.
Yeah, I think that's probably
it literally looked like a Minecraft Steve.
That's pretty. Yeah, it's pretty funny. But regardless, let's get into our like I guess what minute review of this movie.
I mean, the quick minute review to and into our discussion. Yeah, you can like start us off. I mean, like it's gonna be hard to explain really because there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, like I mean, I'm gonna get into it for at least for me, but boy, is this movie quite a ride if you're not like fully on board. But yeah, all right.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be a lot of sit down, just listen. I'm gonna explain.
Yeah.
All right, go for it.
All right, so Dune is just a one visually spectacular movie, and I am kind of slightly upset that I didn't get to see an IMAX, but that's fine. The soundtrack by Hans Zimmer, pretty solid all considered. The acting, everybody brings their sort of I think A game for the most part. This is made by Daniel Villeneuve, I believe. He did Arrival and the new Blade Runner that came out a couple years ago. And he has like a knack for this sci-fi stuff going down pretty well. But yeah, I think Dune is a very interesting story. Just sort of like at the same time, I feel like it does sort of drag in that first third with a lot of like world building exposition stuff. But regardless of that, I think as well as like probably one of the biggest things for me is that if you're not really into hard sci-fi like this, then I don't think you're gonna like this movie very much. But besides that, I think I enjoyed my time with it, and I would probably give this like 8.5.
I mean, you went over a minute, but yeah, no, I'm 100% with you. As for me, I totally agree with Joe over here. It's a very deep sci-fi movie. It's a very visually spectacular film. Like I said, if you have the chance, go watch it in IMAX. Because it's one of those movies where, like, the IMAX experience really, makes the movie and go for it. The acting, for the most part, is really good. I will say there is a thing about this movie that may, like, make or break it with you. And I will go over that in our discussion portion where this movie is technically a part one. So if you're not enjoying this one, then maybe you won't like the part two. But if you do, go for it because this is a really like visually spectacular film. It's just great actors and a very compelling story. And if you've seen some sci-fi stuff, you're gonna get used to Dune. Maybe not as hardcore sci-fi stuff, but this is the one to go with. Like if you're used to sci-fi, you'll be fine. If you're not, then that's the big question.
Yeah, and I think that is sort of like my I think if we want to jump into a little bit of a critique here, that's sort of my big thing is that like Dune is just like one of those movies that it feels like if you went into the theater to watch this and you decided to go take a bathroom break, you would come back and be like, wait, what happened?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of stuff happening. It's not like there's not like a lot of crazy stuff happening. It's more like it's very political.
Yeah, that's
It's
definitely
very,
one.
very political, and in a way that I think, we're talking about, sci-fi movies. Just episode one try to be, but wasn't as engaging. Here, it's like, okay, this family here is taking over the planet. They're trying to get this spice going. But it's clearly obvious like stuff is going on, and there's like a lot behind the scenes stuff. And you compared it to like almost like a Roman thing.
Yeah, I mean, because there's like this political system. There's, I guess, the Imperium is what the whole like ruled by the Emperor, who rules this in like whole sector, like the galaxy or whatever. There's various houses that sort of compete for power. One of them being, I think, House Atreus, which is like sort of where our main character Paul is from. And like there's various other stuff going on around, like essentially like they're all vying for power over, the planet of Arrakis, or Dune, as they call it sometimes, because it's because of the spice, right?
Spice Malone.
Yeah, which, I mean, if you've seen recent seasons of South Park, the episode with I think they mentioned Jedi Fallen Order, and like Kyle's mom gets like a what was it, like something to do with like poop, right? Because it's usually what happens.
It's,
like
and it's some football player. I forgot. Is it Eli?
No, it's Tom Brady. It's Tom Brady. And because everybody's like, well, if we get Tom Brady's poop inside of us, then we'll be like Tom Brady. And that's
it's
like
very South Park kind of thing to do.
Yeah, and obviously that whole bit is just a reference to Dune being like the spice melange.
Yeah, because it's about the spices.
Yeah, and the spice in the Dune universe is essentially like both like a hallucinogen, but also like used as like fuel for like interstellar travel, right?
Yeah, it's used for a lot of stuff, and also like has like sort of like spiritual, like awakening for some people.
Yeah,
because there's a moment where Paul does have this sort of like he gets hit with it, and he's like having this sort of like moment. I can't really describe it.
It's I feel like it's what would happen if you took a really hard hit with a bong, just like, wow.
Like not just like a hard hit. It's more like I can see the face of God.
I can see through time. Which, yeah. I mean, yeah, like
that's exactly what happens to him too.
Yeah, he does.
He can see the future.
Yeah, because Paul has like this weird sort of stuff going on. But I mean, listening to us talk about this stuff,
it's not going to do it justice.
Absolutely not. And even then, which goes back to my point of just like, there's a lot of shit here, and if you're not following like 100% on, you're gonna be like lost real fast. Cause like there's definitely a moment where I just went to go get something, and
thank God you paused.
Yeah, and thank God I paused, because I was like, because I came back, it was like some important stuff. I'm like, oh Jesus, if I was thinking in my brain like, if I did not pause this and just decided to go somewhere else, like take a quick pee break and just come back, I'm like, wait, what happened?
And this is an hour and a half movie.
No, this is 2 hours and a half.
I'm sorry, 2 hours, yes.
But I feel like because that first third, it feels way longer.
It does. I mean, like I said, this is a part one movie. You're only getting the first half of the novel.
Yeah, I looked that up. Like apparently, the director David Villeneuve said that essentially he wants to make a trilogy, and I think there is a go ahead for the sequel, but that mainly this movie Dune is the first half of the first novel.
Yeah, and like, okay, so if you've been watching the trailers for this movie, Zendaya is in this movie, but she only shows up at the beginning, bits and snips, and at the end.
Yeah, and that's pretty crazy.
And that's not that's just like that's not really spoiling for you. That's just me telling you right now. If you are a fan of Zendaya, one, you still watch the movie because it's a really good movie. Two, don't be too excited.
Yeah, it feels like
she's like a guest star.
It kind of feels like what happened with Godzilla 2014, where just Bryan Cranston is all on the trailers, but he's only there for like the first third.
Yeah, but it's not as disappointing.
Probably, yeah. Because at least that like this movie is getting a sequel, and you're gonna get more Zendaya, right? Which, I mean, that was the crazy thing to me too, because I didn't know about this being part one until like the opening credits. You just see Dune, part one. I'm like, wait, what? Part one?
This wasn't in the marketing.
Yeah, this was. Yeah, I was like, that was exactly it. I was like, because that was my thinking of when I was first hearing about the Dune movie. Right, I was like, okay, these movies have been lauded similar to Lord of the Rings, being like they're unfilmable. The first time they tried to do it didn't work out so great. So how are they? How is this going to be different? Now we know because it's only part one.
Which makes sense because considering how dense it was. Like, hey, if you were to look at like Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, those movies are still cutting a lot.
Yeah, the extended editions, man. That's
And there's still stuff that's not even in the from the books that's in the extended editions.
yeah. Just because again, like you said, like the Lord of the Rings books are just really dense with a lot of stuff in various appendices and even stuff from the Silmarillion if you really want to go deep in there.
Oh no, yeah. Heck, they don't include a specific character like Tom Bombadil, who's like a forest god or something. I don't remember.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy.
Because I think Sam and Frodo meet him, but like that's not in the movie. And they might have had him planned to be in it, but they're like, you know what? It does not work. We're gonna scrap the fuck out of this.
yeah, but Dune is just very. It's a dense movie, and I don't like when I say if you can't follow hard sci-fi, then you might have a hard time. I'm not saying that as a discouragement, as like, oh, you're probably not gonna like this movie.
You say it as a warning.
It's a warning. Like if you can't handle it, then you might have a tough time.
If you're expecting Star Wars level stuff from this thing that inspired Star Wars, you're gonna get it, but not in the way you think.
Yeah,
you're not gonna have epic space battles.
No, if anything, like. Because I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of expecting more laser guns going pew pew. There wasn't a whole lot of that.
There was zero.
There was like maybe one like section with like some lasers, and even then they weren't that impressive.
No, but I'll tell you what is impressive: the fucking cinematography and the visuals. Good lord, the artistic style in this movie.
There is a scene. There's a battle, and there's like a fight in like some stairs. I think you've seen that?
Yes.
That's probably like so well shot. I really like that.
That was your favorite shot?
Like it's like I don't know, it's just like the darkness and the light, all contrasting and stuff. Like it looks really cool. With that being said, I think you mentioned this when you're watching it, that like you were like some of the fight choreography might need a little touch up.
Yeah, I get like as a guy who has done a lot of martial arts, I see a lot of overextending and like over stuff, especially with like knives and like short swords. It's like if you overextend, that's a little bad.
Yeah,
it leaves a little wide open. But I guess it kind of makes sense if you think about it, because I'm going way over topic. but to sum up, those are just little things. But like, who was the art director for the Aliens movies? He's like really well known. I just can't remember his name.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah,
But like you can see you can see some influence of that in certain sections. Like there's like a whole ritual scene to get ready for battle, and it's like the color. Like have you seen Ridley Scott's recent Alien movies like Prometheus and Is it Isolation?
Alien Isolation.
Yeah, something like that.
I thought that was a video game.
Oh no, I can't remember, but it looks something like around that one.
Okay.
But it's really great.
Okay. But yeah, no. Yeah, I think I will say I was gonna have this as a critique.
H.R. Geiger.
Oh, that's what it was.
Dude, there's a lot of H.R. Geiger like style of art around the movie and look too, especially for like what is the name of that family? The one with Dave Bautista.
Harkoven? No, it's not Harkoven.
Harkins?
The House Hark.
It's with an H.
Yeah. It's
Harkin.
Yeah. I think it's Harkin. Yeah, I think it's Harkin. Yeah, I definitely agree with that, because there is a lot of like very sort of like they're very very much have like subdued colors and it looks very sterile.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like it's very interesting. But I think the art direction is definitely pretty stellar.
Mm-hmm.
I mean Hans Zimmer's score, which I actually kind of didn't know it was Hans Zimmer at first, but I think it was just because I always expect Hans Zimmer score just to have the boom, boom. There wasn't a lot of that, but there was a lot of like uh like chanting stuff. You know what I
You
mean?
know, the usual kind of chanting you hear in like a desert film, like hi, yeah, that
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it was like it
It
was
works.
it's different enough that it makes you feel like yeah, this is a very alien planet,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
an
yeah,
alien desert planet.
yeah, yeah. And I mean the acting. I think we mentioned earlier is pretty solid. I
Yeah,
think the main character, Paul, his actor. Uh,
he doesn't have much to do, but he works as a reactionary character.
yeah, because he's very much like, what the hell's happening?
Yeah, he's a good like and you can see why you can see the Luke in him. Aside from the fact that they both have biblical names.
Yeah, which I won't lie, we had a bit of a discussion before this. I was like, isn't it weird how this movie is like super sci-fi, but then our main character is just named Paul, just like, hey, I'm Paul, and you're like, hey, yeah, but Luke though. It's like, yeah, but Luke's a biblical name though, and you're like, yeah, so is Paul. Ah, shit, you're right. I was like, God damn it, you got me good.
It's like, ha! I know my Christianity.
Yeah, and
I'm
it's
not, I'm
like,
not a good guy.
well, I mean, listen, all right.
I know my stuff, but anyways, but no, it's, but like he has like a very, and it's very much a hero's journey, just like in Star Wars, where he is destined for greatness, but at the same time, he's like, I kind of don't know what I want though.
Yeah, which I think is a nice thing for the character
Mm-hmm.
because we get moments of like he kind of like understands that he has like that he has a bigger role in the world,
Mm-hmm.
but like he's like I'm not 100% sure if I want to do this.
And like, I'm not gonna spoil the ending, but the way like first of all, the way it ends abruptly.
Yeah, which
But
is very clear as to why it's a part one, right?
yeah, but I argue that it works well for Paul's story, considering like the fact that he has to like in the hero's journey. You know, it's the whole thing where like he kind of has to accept that he is like part of this bigger plan. You know, this whole story. At that point, it makes sense that that happens to him and why he does the thing he does.
Mm-hmm.
And so like now we're getting ready for that whole thing. By the way, if you were expecting the worms, you only see them once.
Well, you see,
But they do have a presence.
yeah, like you can see them a couple times, but they mainly just like hide them a little bit. There's like only like yeah, like you said, one scene where we get like
And
a
you've
real
seen that scene.
yeah, a real good shot of them. But yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, if you're expecting like I guess what the first movie did, just a bunch of riding some worms, I guess you ain't getting that. At least not in this part. So I mean, you know, who knows? But yeah, I mean, what I will say there was like a thing, at least for me, because I think I already mentioned this a little bit where I was watching and it seemed dark. I'm really hoping that doesn't happen in an IMAX, right? Like it's not like super dark. All at the same time, it was kind of interesting. It kind of gave because like certain scenes, like some certain like interesting bits, like the scene with when we get a good shot of the worm.
Mm-hmm.
Like on my screen, all I saw was the teeth. And I thought that was like super terrifying for a minute. It was like, oh, that's kind of cool. All you see is just the teeth, but he's there. You just can't see him because it's super dark. But then obviously when you put it on the big screen, it's like, oh, okay, all right. Well, this isn't as interesting, but I don't know. It was just like it's a little thing that I thought that was kind of interesting, but obviously you're probably gonna like want like a really solid viewing experience to take that full in.
Like even the sound design needs to be done in like that kind of thing. And you think about it, it's kind of tragic that one you can only there's two ways of watching it, and most people will probably go with the HBO Max.
Yeah, considering you know we're going through some stuff in the real world, and that was like I think I looked up. That was like something like the director kind of was like fearful of. Is just like, oh, so like you know we're releasing this on you know streaming platforms and you know in theaters, and you know I feel like you know it's gonna you know it should be a theater experience, you know, and like as well as like the whole thing with some of these movies heading to streaming is that there is some bit of like lost revenue, right? Because you're really only paying for just the streaming service, and there isn't like a premium fee. I mean, granted, Disney does that, did it for Mulan, did it for Black Widow, and like on top of their subscription fee, while HBO Max is like, and I think other places that have been releasing their films on streaming service, they're like, just pay the subscription fee. You don't have to pay extra for the movie. Especially because I think with HBO Max and stuff, they're like, it's only gonna be here for a certain amount of time, and then it'll be gone. But which I think it is their way of trying to incentivize people to subscribe. But it probably won't make as much money if it was just all in theaters, because that way they can easily keep track of it. Because you won't really know the amount of money you make off of streaming service based off of a movie release, because obviously there's other stuff being released at the moment. I mean, heck, not to get too off topic, but I mean, Young Justice, the newest season came out.
Yeah, but that's kind of a different thing. That's a show, not a.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, maybe if I was Warner Brothers or whoever who owns HBO Max, see that uptake, you're gonna be like, is it because of Young Justice or is it because we released Dune? We don't know. Okay. That's sort of that's my point.
Fair enough. But to go back to the movie, I think that the thing about what makes Dune so impressive is, one, Denis Villeneuve. He's French, right?
Yeah, that's definitely a French last name.
I'm trying to really hard not to mispronounce his last name, but I keep seeing it as a very similar Spanish last name.
I mean, it's all Latin, bro.
It's all Latin. But no, man, he's getting up there with the sci-fi, because Arrival was such an interesting take on of a alien, not an alien invasion movie, but like, what if aliens were to come now? How would we communicate with them? How would they,
Yeah, because that's like, I mean, a lot of people, especially like scientists, right? They're like, this is like super interesting. This is like, like super interesting. Like, of course, we wouldn't be able to communicate with aliens in a similar way, because obviously we don't even know what aliens are. We don't know what they look like. We don't even, we don't. How will we be able to communicate? So that whole movie is just.
And in most like sci-fi stuff, it was Translator, but here, but that one was like math.
Yeah, like this. Yeah, Rival's like, okay, real world. Like, we don't have translators. Like just like little chips that can just automatically translate everything. All right. Nor is this the Tekken universe where everybody speaks their own language and everybody understands it automatically. But yeah, it's like, all right, we have to like figure out, what do these symbols mean? This is their language. We got to decipher this shit, right? Which it's certainly interesting, and obviously Blade Runner,
was a surprising good movie.
Yeah, making a sequel to a cult classic. So yeah, he has like a good reign on sci-fi, and I think getting him on Dune was probably the right call for this, because I think this is probably going to be like the definitive version of Dune for quite a while, in my eyes anyway, because like obviously you still have like the David Lynch version, which I mean, even the director himself was like, this is not good. So yeah, now I think a lot of people, especially fans of Dune, are going to be like, sort of like, happy to see like a more or less faithful adaptation.
Yeah, that's what it really feels like too, because like, I feel like, even though I've never read Dune, I feel like I got a lot of what Dune was about from this movie.
No, absolutely. I feel like, and considering, director is planning the sequel to, this is a part 1, part 2 thing. Like, it definitely shows that he cares enough about the property to be like, we can't fit all this book into one movie. We gotta like split it up. We gotta like, make it so that it's understand, like, everything works and it's not too rushed. And I gotta give him props for that. He made I think he made a pretty solid call, even if some people feel that the ending does feel a little abrupt, right? And it's because it's like, this is like the halfway point.
Yeah, because heck, just the way it was done. The first third was super political heavy,
Mm-hmm.
and the second half is basically life on Dune, and then third is like all the shit's going down.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're getting into the stuff that's really like like what I'm saying is that this whole movie felt like like you understand why I had to cut it down
Mm-hmm.
because that's a lot to include. That's a lot to happen, and you can't really cut that out. Well, they have important information now and it fleshes out the characters, but also fleshes out the world that it would be too difficult to cut out.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to include it. Now for the second half, I don't know. We'll see how how that goes. Um, but I mean, you got to give it to the writing team. They were able to pull off something that was considered to be like unadaptable because like Lord of the Rings, yes, unadaptable. That's why the only way they could have done it was the animated version with
At the time, yeah,
yeah,
with
with Ralph Bakshi, and then the third one with the third because the Ralph Bakshi movie was the first two books, and then the third one was completed through
Rankin Bass.
Rankin Bass, and then Hobbit too for that one, and later on that was like that's it, that's the definitive version.
Yeah, that was even then. Some people were like,
Yeah, I don't know about that. And then Peter Jackson came in and be like,
I mean,
mine.
yeah, I mean to be fair, like they also sort of like did like a pretty ballsy maneuver of just filming all three movies back to back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then having them released afterwards, which I mean, like that's a pretty big gamble, especially for a studio. It's like you want to film all three books back to back, and there's a chance that the first one might not even do good.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a gamble, but it paid off. I mean, Return of the King got Best Picture, didn't it?
Rightfully did.
Yeah, because
That
that's
was a great movie.
yeah,
And I love the Lord of the Rings movies.
yeah.
So like yeah, and I can totally see Dune happening. But the weird thing is that you said it's been greenlit, but they haven't started anything.
Yeah, that's my from at least from what I've read, like they are like scripting down the second one.
Okay,
is
so
what I've heard.
I think that would make sense as to why it would take longer.
Yeah, and also like I mean, given current circumstances, like I'm not sure they'll be able to get back to the place they were filming.
Yeah,
I don't think they were filming in Arizona. Did not look like Arizona to me.
It did not look like Arizona.
Yeah, so unless they want to build a giant sand dune in a studio lot, or like just make it a giant blue screen film, but that wouldn't look as impressive, I don't think.
No. Because the thing about this is that the whole design of this film makes it feel like really, like I said, lived in, to the point where like you kind of forget most of this is probably CG.
Yeah, like there are some shots where like I think you could argue that maybe that's practical, but no, I'm pretty sure like there is probably a good chunk that is just CG. It's just that it's very well done, and you're sort of just like, is it a set or are we back in the blue? Or are we back in the green screen room? Hold on a second.
Yeah, because like the fact that it feels one lived in, two, these are like machines that or like architect that could work for like a world like this makes it feel more of an experience and more of an accessible thing for a lot more people than anything else. Because that was kind of the thing with like even in Star Wars, where like, and you can argue that the inclusion of this was kind of dumb, but like the extended, was it the extended, what are they called, the extended edition for Star Wars or
the special edition?
Special editions, like the one where like people were like, I don't like the way it looks. I like the one that was practical, but at the same time, if you want to make it look alien, you kind of have to. At some point, you got to use some CGI in there.
Yeah, because like obviously, I think Lucas added like extra scenes and various different things. I think, especially in the Tatooine sections where the stormtroopers are riding those weird like lizard things, which weren't there in the first time. It's like it looks out of place. I don't like it, but it's like at the same time though, you gotta like.
It would make sense.
Yeah,
like it feels more lived in. But sadly, because the the way it was back then, it couldn't be done. Because I remember watching like what was it, Empire Strikes Back, and me and a friend were talking like, for an alien planet, they have a lot of like normal looking animals.
I mean, to be fair, like in the Moise Isley scene in the cantina, there's literally just a werewolf dude. It's just a dude in like a werewolf costume.
Yeah,
Which is
this
like
devil looking dude.
Yeah, it's like,
and like the
right.
only one you can like you remember off the top of the head is the dude, the alien that gets his arm cut off, and the Moise Cantina's band.
Yeah, going
because they were like the only ones that stood out.
Just playing their little music. Dun, 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 dun. I don't think. Oh wait, listen. Is that gonna get us copyright struck?
Hopefully not.
Probably not. Hopefully.
We'll see.
Yeah.
YouTube. But I don't think there's any more I can talk about. It's just really like a good movie that I feel like everyone should go out and watch.
Yeah, like I guess score wise, but I think I kind of already gave my score. It's like an 8.5 for me.
Dude, I'm hesitant to give it a 9.
I mean, that's fine. Like
I want to give it that, but I don't know.
I mean, like for me, 8.5 just because yes, the the visuals are good, are great. Mm-hmm. The acting is great. Cinematography is great. Just art direct, everything's great.
So what's keeping you from saying like a 9 or a 10?
It's just that world building and just like how dense this is for me. It's just like I don't know.
Do you feel
man.
like they should have cut back, or like they should have like streamlined it a little bit, like fixed it up a little bit more to be streamlined?
I feel maybe like just try to streamline some things because again, like the scene, like I mentioned earlier, the stuff with the shield thing, like the way like they show it off and don't try to like explain it. I feel like there should be more stuff like that in this film, at least of like show don't tell for me, right? And that's just like a basic, like sort of tenet of filmmaking. It's a visual medium. You show don't tell. You don't waste time just explaining stuff. Because there is like some moments where I'm just like, hey, this is just a lot of dialogue and various other things. I just we might need to cut
like
this
what
back.
Scene without going into the spoiler?
It's sort of early on. It mainly has to do with the mother and like this and that covenant sisterhood thing, stuff with that.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like I feel like that could be cut down a little bit.
Okay, I get what you're saying.
But I also at the same time I can kind of understand like because like they do seem to be like a pretty big deal, and I'm assuming in the book. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because I mean obviously I think there are stuff that they do good with like the Emperor stuff. Like we never see him. They just keep talking about this. Dude.
Imagine if like the Emperor in Star Wars had a bigger presence in the original trilogy.
Yeah,
instead of just coming out of nowhere in the third.
Well, I mean, having like a bit of a like I think maybe a name drop in the first movie. We see him a little bit in the second, but we fully get to see him in the third. Like right?
Yeah, but here it's like, oh,
like he is a presence so large that everyone just sort of talks about him, but they never ever want to like say anything bad about him.
No.
Yeah.
He could be listening.
Perhaps, yeah. But yeah, no, I think that's what it is for me. Because again, I like this movie. It's just that I feel like it's very dense in that heavy sci-fi stuff, and I could get through it. It's just that I like I said, if you're not as into that stuff, you might have problems, So yeah, that's me. That's an 8.5.
I mean, I'm probably going to settle with the 8.5 with you there, mostly because I feel like it. No, fuck it, I'm giving it a 9.
All right,
it's a great movie. It's almost a perfect movie. I think just the way that how it abruptly ends. One, but it works at the same time. It just feels like it's really holding it back. I'm probably gonna say it this way. I want to have the full both films, even the third one, just to have that full experience. Because it's the same way as like it's the same way when like Avengers: Infinity War came out, and then we had Endgame. I didn't want to give like my full thoughts on Infinity War because I wanted to see how Endgame was, because I feel like those were two kind of movies together.
Yeah, and I mean they were sort of originally built that way until they were like, no, let's have this be Infinity War, and then the next one we're calling Endgame, right? But yeah, no, I think yeah, overall, Dune, pretty great movie. Go out and watch it in IMAX.
Please.
Yeah, stay safe out there if you're gonna do that. I mean, obviously, if you have like I guess a home studio or whatever, like just a big ass TV and like a surround sound, then yeah, sure, put that on your big ass TV like that, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and watch it on HBO Max. But yeah, no, that's Dune. I mean, I won't lie because I remember before this, you were like, "Do you want to review Dune?" You asked me, "Do you want to review Dune?" I'm like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I maybe I guess I'm not fully familiar with it, but sure. I mean, that seems like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I'll feel about it. And you know what? I'm kind of glad I watched this movie. I'm kind of glad you talked me into reviewing this.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
I mean, the next review we're probably gonna do is Eternals, and that also looks like it's gonna be a visually spectacular film that needs to be watched in IMAX, and hopefully we can watch it in IMAX.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure I haven't heard anything about them putting that on Disney Plus. So,
Yeah. So anyway,
I mean, yeah, but
yeah.
yeah,
So guys, thanks for checking us out. That's our review for Dune. If you like what you heard, you can follow us on any social medias at Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at the Geek Centurions. And if you go on Instagram, we are most active. We are almost 100 followers. Please help us out with that. And yeah, if you're there, you'll find a link to all those sites that we're officially part of, like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, all that good stuff, along with a link to our YouTube for all you audio listeners out there to give a face to the voice, where you can like, comment, subscribe, all the stuff that YouTube tends to do, and you can support us on Patreon, where really anything could really help. We're not really asking much, but we want to do some stuff. We're gonna need some help, and yeah, that's about it. Dune's pretty good. Go watch it.
yeah.
IMAX. Anyways, it's been me, your boy Eli.
It's been me, Joe.
And you guys have a good one. Peace.